Everything you have in this life is a byproduct of the standards that you hold for yourself. Your weight, the shape that your physical fitness is in, is a result of the standard that you hold in that area of your life. Your income, your earning potential, your savings, your bank account is a byproduct of the standard that you hold in the financial realm of your life. Your relationships, whether they're good, bad, toxic, serving to you, or pulling life out of you, are a byproduct of the standards that you hold in that area of your life. And if you're struggling with a pornography addiction, it is a byproduct of the standard that you hold for yourself as a man. You know, Tony Robbins once said, we do not get the goals that we set for ourselves in our life. We get the standards that we hold ourselves to. So the message I want to pass through you here today in this episode of The Rebuilt Man is that if you want to quit porn, you want to reboot, you want to rewire your brain, you want to take back control of your life, it must start with changing and raising your standards. Guys, my name is Coach Frank Rich, founder of Rebuilt Recovery and host of the Rebuilt Man podcast. And it is our mission to help men become better men by quitting porn and rebuilding their lives. And we do that here on this podcast 3 times per week. So if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, give this video a thumbs up. But if you're looking for a tactical and proven strategy to get you out of the depths of this addiction, to help you gain back control of your life, quit porn, reboot, rewire your brain, we put together free training on our 12-step framework. You can get that full training at rebuiltrecovery.com/12 steps, or if you hit the link down there in the show notes below, it'll direct you immediately over to that page. But raising our standards, gentlemen, raising our standards is the formula. It is the recipe. It is the gateway to you getting control of this area of your life. You know, I remember vividly, and I talk about this very regularly, and that's why the memory is so imprinted on my brain. But for 20 years as a young man, I struggled with a pornography addiction. And I can remember having a conversation on February 14th, 2019, 5.5 years ago, sitting in the front seat of my car, looking across the car at one of my best friends in the world, somebody that I held an insane amount of respect for. He had opened up to me in this conversation. He had shared with me some secrets about his struggles. He had shared with me how he was getting control of this area of his life. Now, by that point, I had accepted to myself that I was a porn addict. I'd looked into the research. I'd understood what was happening to my brain, but I hadn't talked about it with anybody, and I hadn't made a clear and definitive decision in my life to quit. But I can remember getting emotional with Zach in that car. I can remember sharing this secret that I'd held for so long. I remember feeling accepted and not judged by him. And I remember vowing to him that day that I was done and I was sick and tired of being a fraud. You see, in 2019, I was struggling to get a fitness business off the ground. I'd had previous success in the 5 years leading up to that with building a company and generating millions of dollars top line revenue. But my fitness business, for some reason, wasn't gaining traction. I was doing everything that I knew as an entrepreneur to get our message in front of as many people as possible. We were creating multiple videos on YouTube every single week. We were doing regular content. We were spreading our message. The guys that were joining us were having success, but we were struggling to scale this. And I can remember a moment looking myself in the mirror, and the person looking back to me, I instantly knew was a fraud. You see, my message in Frank Rich Fitness was about building your greatest body so that you could live your greatest life. My message at fitness was that this was the gateway into personal development, that getting control of your body was the first step and becoming the best version of yourself. You see, I'd conquered that area of my life. I'd spent a decade on the competitive bodybuilding stage. I'd worked in gyms. I had created content for other YouTube channels that had reached millions of individuals. I was an expert in the field of muscle building, but I was living a lie. You see, here I was saying that the gateway to becoming the best version of yourself was through physical fitness. But when I looked at myself in the mirror, the individual looking back to me wasn't living his best life. He wasn't the highest version of himself. There's a mask on. There's a character that was being played. My standards about who I was were lower than what I was portraying them to be. You see, I was not living in alignment with the values that I was sharing with the world. And when I tried to create content and share that message, because it wasn't true, because it wasn't authentic, because it wasn't real, it didn't resonate with any audience. So this leads us to having this conversation with Zach, where I previously that morning looked myself in the mirror and said, Frank, you are a fraud. I told Zach, I'm done. It's time for me to raise the standards in my life. It's time for me to remove this completely, because I know that this thing is holding me back from greatness. I know that this one area of my life is the biggest barrier for me breaking through and becoming the man that I know I can and should be. And on that Thursday afternoon, I made a choice to raise my standards. I made a choice then and there that no matter what life threw at me, no matter what I feel was weighing me down, the answer to that problem was not pornography. And you see, here's what we have to understand, is it was that choice on that Thursday afternoon that has led me to standing here today, speaking to you. It was that choice of getting control of my life, of raising my standards, that enabled me later that summer to launch a podcast that quickly blew up and quickly gained traction. It was that choice, it was that decision of raising my standards that has led me to creating the #1 coaching organization in the world that helps men overcome their pornography addiction. It was that choice, it was that decision to raise my standards that has now put me on some of the biggest podcast platforms in the world, that has put me on stages speaking to and leading men out of addiction. There was nothing special about me back in 2019. And if you want me to be completely honest, there's not a whole lot special about what we do at Rebuilt Recovery. We understand success. We understand human behavior. We understand mindset. We understand breaking limiting beliefs. We understand behavioral change. But so do a lot of other people. What we understand here, though, that others miss, is that none of those tactics work if you aren't willing to raise the standards for the man that you want to become. That choice, that decision of raising your standards is the first decision that you must make if you are going to get control of this behavior. You have to decide today that your future that you want is a future without pornography. You have to decide right now that you are going to become the man that no matter what life throws at you, no matter how hard you are triggered, no matter how deep those urges run inside of you, no matter how hopeless you may feel at certain times throughout the day, that the answer to those problems and the solver for those issues is not pornography. You want to remove porn out of your life? Start by raising the standards of the life that you're dedicated to living. Become the man that doesn't look at porn. Raise that standard. Embrace that identity. And then put in the work. And if you want a formula, you want a blueprint to help you get out of this addiction, rebuiltrecovery.com/12 steps. You can visit the link down there in the show notes below. But we lay out exactly what needs to happen over the next 12 weeks. But I'll tell you right now, don't enroll in the training. Don't even click the link if you're not willing to raise your standards. But if you decided right now that you're committed to becoming the man that no longer looks at porn, that's the first choice. The next one is to click the link down there in the show notes below, rebuildrecovery.com/12 steps. Your host, Coach Frank Ritchie at The Rebuild Man. We love you guys. We'll see you in the next one.